I'd like to welcome you all today to the 6th session of All That's Kerala, actually a series that has been started by Mohit and Mr. Joseph. Today we have with us Mr. Hormis Tharakan, a member of India's prestigious Indian Police Service, or IPS as it's known. From the 1968 batch, he belonged to the Kerala cadre. He had an illustrious career in the IPS and was the Director General of Police Kerala, and was then picked up by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh to head RAW. He finally retired in 2007, and since then, if you can believe it, he's been a farmer. From a policeman to a farmer. After retirement, he built a nice house in Cochin Estuary, once an island, and now a small village that nestles among the backwaters about 40 kilometers south of Cochin. He is today what he has always been and what we all know him for, a gentleman more than anything else, but also a farmer. Welcome, sir, to this program, All That's Kerala. Today's episode is titled, A Chat Along the Backwaters.
Thank you so much, Atiti. What you said is so true. You can really never believe that somebody like Dr. Hormis Tharakan could be a policeman. Even when he wears a uniform, it's like you still wouldn't believe that he is a policeman, and you can certainly not believe that he is a farmer. It's a privilege for me to have a conversation with him on the 6th episode of All That's Kerala, Chat Along the Backwaters. And we're going to talk today, chat today actually, about living on the edge of the backwaters. Dr. Tharakan was, as you know, not only the chief of the police in Kerala, he was DGP Kerala, but then, as you said, Aditi, he was picked up by Manmohan Singh personally and was chief of the intelligence service, the research and analysis wing. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about living on the edge, though, but living on the edge of the backwaters. And so it's a pleasure for me, sir, to welcome you to the 6th episode of All That's Kerala, Chat Along the Backwaters with us. Let me start off by asking you, how is it to live along the backwaters? Even though this show is called A Chat Along the Backwaters, this is the first time we have had somebody who's actually living on the side of the backwaters. We've talked, and this is the first time we are talking about the backwaters. So how is it for you as a former IPS officer who has spent most of his time in cities, in air-conditioned buildings? How is it for you to wake up every day to the sound of waters lapping along the shores of those backwaters, along the boundaries of your house compound? How is it? What is the feel to that? It must be quite a peaceful place there. Is it too peaceful? Does it become boring and jarring occasionally, sir?
Well, first of all, I think thank you for having me on this show. I would also like to compliment the City Book Class, Mohit in particular, and the Kerala Museum for helping to get this concept go online. And it is inspiring and motivating to know that there are myriad kindred spirits out there partaking of this conversation virtually as we talk. I would like all the listeners to know that I'm honored to have them as my interlocutors too. Yes, it is true, Mr. Joseph. How do I address you? Moderator, administrator?
Call me just Joseph.
Or comrade?
No, please. This gamcha is something that has nothing to do with being comrade. I mean, this is a gamcha, as they call it in the north in Delhi, and was given to me by Mohit when I attended one of his programs in Delhi.
Okay. Well, it is true that I've spent most of my working life in towns, cities, and metros. However, I was born in and grew up in a village called Olavaip, which is in the Cochin Estuary Panchayat of Cherthala, Alappuzha district. Olavaip is almost an island covered on 3 sides by the Kaithapura Kail, which is actually a branch of the Vembanad, and by a vast paddy field on the eastern side, through which we had a lifeline, which we called the Palangivaramba, to the mainland, which in our case was again another island, the Pallipuram Island, which was the largest in the Vembanad Lake, which is the largest island in the Vembanad Lake. For you to have a better idea of the lie of the land, I shall show you a sketch of the Cochin Estuary. My technological competence is poor. The method I've chosen for sharing the pictures with you may not be the best, but I hope you'll bear with me, and I hope you will be able to see this properly. Estuary, I don't know whether you can see it properly.
We can see it. We can see it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So this is where you enter the Cochin port, and then you come down, and then here is the red and azure, which you know, and the blue is where our Pallipuram Island starts. The Arukuti, and then as you come down, you have Panavali, then Taikatisheri here. That is where I live. If you go further down, you reach Tanirmukam, the Bund, which leads you to Kumarakam. And then, of course, at this end is the end of the island, and then you connect to Cherthala. So that is where I am. So the entire lie of the backwaters in this area is shown here, even up to Varapura, your place, Joseph. We can see it out here, up here. So there's a very interesting estuary map which I thought would be useful. Many years later, in 1990s, Mr. A.K. Anthony, who was our MLA for long, took the lead in building another bridge at the northern end of the island, at Arukuti, bringing it much closer to Cochin City. So now it's very easy for us to get to Cochin City. We're only 25 to 30 kilometers from city center, actually, by road. So that is a major change for us, and a lot of people from here go daily to Cochin to work. And that also contributed to the problems of farming and agriculture in this area. But generally, it has been a very progressive step, for which we are grateful to Mr. Anthony. But at the same time, I don't want to forget the contributions of other people's representatives of various parties, like Mr. Vailar Ravi, who was also from the Congress, Srimati K.R. Gavariyamma, and several others like Mr. Sudanandan of the CPI, etc. Actually, our area is full of, because of Vailar, a number of leftist leaders have come up from our place who have reached high places in the political life of Kerala. They have all significantly contributed to the development of our region. Just a few years back, another bridge connecting Taikatisheri to Torovo towards the highway was again built. I think Mr. Anthony took a lot of interest in that, but it was completed during the subsequent government's time. And yet another bridge connecting Taikatisheri to the Vaikam side is on the anvil. And once it is completed, our place will actually be a transport hub. Meanwhile, other things have also happened, like in Pallipuram, the industrial food processing development plant has come, and IT park has come. So things are changing really in this area. So our isolation is close to an end. But I grew up as an islander in a proper insular environment. Went to local schools until I left for Royal College, Madras, where you also studied.
That's true.
At the age of 16 to do my pre-university. Till then, I went to school on foot and on part of the way in boat, learned to swim and go like any other islander, and watched the farming activities going on around me. And it was more than 5 decades later that I returned to live here permanently, and I have always wanted to return here.
So thank you so much. I think so. You always had a village life. Now, how did you, after retirement, how did you decide to become a farmer? So then, what are the crops you grow? Everybody says farming is backbreaking. That it's almost a loss-making enterprise, at least in Kerala today. How successful have they been to you? In your case, do you actually work in the fields? Do you wear a lungi, half-mast? go and hoe the field? Do you do that?
I wear a lungi and go to the fields, but I don't get into the water at the age
Okay,
of.
right.
It's a bit risky to get into the water, but I do, as well as well as paddy. Look, I do paddy and prawns. This is part of the government's scheme of Urunellam Uruminum, which is actually supported by the government of India to NABARD and its local implementing agencies, ADAC, the Agricultural Development Agency of Kerala. It is very interesting, actually. One of the reasons I got into it, the government of India had been able to locate just 3 projects which fitted that description, and one of which was Kerala government's Urunellam Uruminum. Substantial subsidies. Actually, very often people criticize governments for not doing enough for agriculture, and this Urunellam Uruminum project, under which you did paddy, not just paddy, but paddy of a particular kind of traditional variety and in an organic manner. And I do what is called Chettivirippa, which is a traditional thing. What my father used to cultivate. The same thing I've been able to revive thanks to after so many years. And it seems that I'm one of the few successful farmers doing that in Kerala today. I'm saying this judging by the demand I have for the seeds every year, at least so far. I have a lot of demand. People come and buy it off as soon as I have my harvest. This year, my wife and I decided that part of the harvest we'll set apart for dehusking as brown rice. One thing, the paddy that I grow is expensive to buy in market, but there are buyers. But when it is, you dehusk it and try to market it as rice, it's even more expensive. So that I've just marketed, and I'm trying to see how the market responds. And then depending on that, I will decide next year whether to do paddy, stick to paddy itself, which goes as seed, which cultivators come and buy from me. But what's interesting is that once the paddy season is over, what I do is our fields are known as the Pakali fields. Pakali is a type of paddy cultivation which has a GI tag, and they're done only in 3 districts here in the Travancore Cochin side, that is Thrissur, Ernakulam and Alappuzha, and Kannur in where it is known by some another name. So that's the method that I follow. The advantage with this is that, the Chettivirippa, the Pakali which I grow, is a tall, Pakali itself, the name in Malayalam indicates it's a tall variety of paddy. So even if there's high levels of water, it can survive. It can also survive in a certain degree of salinity. So that is the advantage of Pakali. And then once the harvest season is over and when the water becomes fresh, when the rainy season starts, the water becomes saline after the rainy season, then we go in for tiger prawns. Tiger prawns again grows in saline water. And the leftovers of the paddy is good, feed for the prawns, and therefore it's a cycle which works very well. I'm yet to perfect it, but I think now I know at the age of 75 I managed to learn the basic tricks, so I think I'll be able to improve upon it as time goes by.
It's great to know then that yours is not a loss-making farming, because many people do say that farming, especially paddy farming, is loss-making. But that's one point. I remember coming to Thaikadisheri about 10, 15 years ago. At that time, the bridges that you spoke about earlier were not there. I had to come in a ferry. The car was in a ferry. And I loved the place. It was beautiful. I think I stayed there for 2 nights. It was a wonderful experience. But then we've got a couple of questions. One is actually a statement. This is from Niranjan Pant. He's my batchmate. He's speaking in from Delhi. And he says, please give my compliments to Mr. Hormis Tharakan. I have the pleasure of visiting his lovely house some 4 years ago with my late wife. He and Mrs. Tharakan were most gracious hosts. And that brings me to the point, the next time the tiger prawns are ready, I think I'll come and visit your house one more time. But more seriously, there are a couple of questions from Rajagiri Media. One of the questions is, we don't seem to have a well-developed system of waterways to connect the backwaters to the mainland. Why is there no importance given to waterways? And also whether you think how the farm bills will affect Kerala, and especially the Kerala farmer.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, when we were young, same place where I built my house now, which is a little distance from a family home, about 500 meters, but mine is closer to the backwaters. Here we used to come in the evening for, getting the breeze and watch the traffic go by. It was a highway-like thing at the time. A lot of commercial traffic from Cochin to Alleppey used to take place along the waterway in front of us. These so-called Kattuvalams, which have all been now converted into, houseboats, used to be cargo boats. And they used to use sails. And in the afternoon, they used to have very nice breeze, which, took them pretty fast. And sometimes, because they also used to be tugs, used to tug them too. But there's a lot of traffic. But that is completely stopped. We are now moved over to trucks and things like that. But I'm told that the Chief Minister, along with our friend Vijay Kurian, has a very interesting scheme to revive these waterways from all the way from one end of Kerala to the other. If that comes through, it'll be a great thing indeed. Of course, the national waterway is already there, but I don't know whether the planned development of those waterways has actually happened. I don't see any evidence of that in my area.
Kerala has had a long tradition of trade ties with Rome 2,500 years ago. Do you see a slice of Kerala in Rome, apart from the gentleman you're talking about? And do you see a slice of Rome in Kerala?
Very much so. I think the Catholic Church is a large number of personnel, priests and nuns over there. I think as far as the embassy is concerned, they're a big help also, in the community functioning, reaching out to the Indian community and all that. So it is, yes, it is a huge Kerala community over there. Actually, when I reached there and one of those Indian community functions, I found that I needed no introduction whatsoever.
There's another very interesting question that's come from Roy in Dallas. He says prediction of rising sea levels. What would be the impact of rising sea levels on people living in low-lying areas like yours? Like, what will happen to the backwaters?
Well, I know that there are many studies which paint a very alarming picture. But as a person living on the shores, on the banks of the backwaters have a very strong backbone. And I think they proved it during the floods of 2018. I live so close to the backwaters. But I think the backwaters bore the brunt of the floods without any problem. There are many people living much closer to the backwater. In spite of the odds that, it doesn't apply to people who have been traditionally staying by the thing. And there are many people like that in our village. But they manage, of course, at the height of the floods during daytime, they move to the school where free lunch and all were provided. But in the evening, they came back home, and so because water never entered their house. I think experts need to study this phenomenon of the backwaters once again. We have had a lot of problems, legal issues, and things like that, which has had an great impact on social impact on India, in Kerala in particular. I think there's a very great need to study the impact of the 2018 floods in particular on backwaters and people, areas close to the backwaters. My impression is that apart from those areas where the rivers come and join the backwaters, there's not been any major damage, and including some small backwater islands which were at the center of the judicial battle on this environmental issue. They have survived absolutely. Not a drop of water entered. One particular, because of various reasons, I'm not mentioning the name of the island. That particular island, which is the center of the storm, not a drop of water entered. And actually, we could have taken refugees from other places and put them up there.
You were the DIG of the Central Zone long ago when I had the fortune of working with you or working as a part of your team as the district collector of Ernakulam and the mayor of Cochin. That was a time when, for the first and perhaps the last time, the Pope came to Kerala. Pope John Paul II, he is now Saint John Paul II. He stayed for 2 or 3 days here. What are your memories of that papal visit? Do you have anything special that you would like to quickly relate to us?
Yeah, I remember it was a great occasion for all of us. We worked together to make that a success. And I think it went off very smoothly. There were four functions which the Pope attended in Kerala. 3 of them were in my jurisdiction. One in Cochin, one in Thrissur, one in Kottayam. Kottayam, where the canonization of Sister Alfonso took place. All were massive crowds, but then I suppose, we were lucky that everything went smoothly. And then I think especially about Cochin, since we are also involved in that in a very major way, I think the choice of the place was brilliant in the sense that the location that I think you played a major role in locating the place. And then that made much very easy for us to make sure that the traffic through the city went on uninterrupted, even while the Pope was addressing such a huge crowd in Kakinad. There were many people, including my eldest brother, rang up and commented on it. He said, "How did you make sure that the traffic went so smoothly while the Pope was addressing the?" So many, I think good to think about those days. And like I was telling my wife, I think we know 2 saints now. One is the Pope and the other is Mother Teresa, both of whom we've had occasion to meet.
That's true. Thank you so much. If your son or any other young man or a woman were to ask you if he or she should choose between the civil service and farming, what would your advice be?
Actually, I have 2 sons. I never force them to join the civil service or anything, and both of them are in their own professions. But I do encourage them to come back and do farming. Maybe not now, but in due course. Once, and they're both very fond of this place, and I won't be surprised if ultimately they decide to come back. There's so much to do, so much to do. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and then the delight not only talking with all of you, but some old friends like Ramu Damodaran, etc., who got in touch from far away. It's been a real pleasure indeed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hormis Tharakan. It's been a pleasure talking to you, understanding village life, understanding Thaikatesheri, and a host of other things. Understanding farming, understanding agriculture, understanding environment. So many things, and your take that nothing happened during the Kerala floods, in spite of our fear of water levels rising. Thank you so much.